Okay. So I'm American. I'm based here in the US, and I've been I haven't traveled since last year, since October, end of October when I was in Vegas for crypto IQ trading event with Charlie Shrem, and I went to Malta first week of November for the Malta AI and blockchain conference. But after that, for the last 6 months, I've been here at home. So I was quarantined before the quarantine. All the conferences I had in crypto and blockchain were canceled. So I've been here at home, not traveling. I mean, I've gone out a few times, but just outdoors playing basketball or to go to mail something at the post office. But everything is closed here where I am in DC, right? And man, I miss traveling. And I said, you know what? As soon as this whole pandemic thing cools off and travel has been open, I want to go somewhere and just vacation and just escape. And I said, where can I go to? And being the frugal person I am, especially now that we're going into this recession, I said, where does the dollar go the furthest? Right, so I began doing my research. And let me share my screen here. So here we're looking at TradingView. Here we're looking at different currencies and how they have performed against the US dollar, right? So we all know the US dollar is the world's reserve currency. It's what's used for trading oil around the world. But I said, okay, what currency has been impacted the most? And I went through, did some research, and these are the currencies I've basically come up with, right? And the first one is the Brazilian real. I think that's how it's pronounced. But at one point, the dollar was up over 40% on the real, but right now it's 35%. Meaning that if you had, let's say, $1,000 beginning of the year, actually this is all the way from November, right? So since November, your $1,000 now is worth over $1,300. I mean, that's free money right there, right? So I reached out to my friend who's based in Brazil, and man, they were saying it's chaos, right? With what's going on now with the pandemic, the president there hasn't really done much. He's really been acting like the pandemic is not real. And he's saying that he was like, "Hey man, come to Brazil. I'll host you. If you come to Brazil, you'll be treated like a king because the dollar goes a long way in Brazil." Then I look at other countries I've been to, other countries that have also had inflation issues or currency crisis. So here we have, this is the Turkish lira. So we know last year and in the past, Bitcoin and crypto has been very, very bullish and popular in Turkey because of inflation. And we see here the dollar is up 23% versus the Turkish lira. Then the Mexican peso as well. The dollar is up 21% versus the Mexican peso, 14.9, almost 15% versus the Russian ruble, 13% versus the Colombian peso. So, I mean, for anybody out there, I mean, yes, it's definitely unfortunate, and I definitely don't want to be distasteful and celebrate on any other countries that are having financial crisis or issues. However, this, if we add Bitcoin to this, right? Because just let's take a look at Colombia. I mean, sorry, at Brazil, right? So, for anybody in Brazil, you have lost money just by holding the local currency, right? So you have lost money. You have lost, the dollar is up 35% versus the Brazilian real. So how did I calculate this last time, right? So you would have been better off putting your money into Bitcoin, right? Let's assume you had $1,000. How do I calculate this? Just give me 1 second here. Right, so assume somebody had $1,000, right, and they kept it in the real, they would have lost. Yeah, I think 35%. I think but I think the calculation is actually kind of inverted. But either way, imagine if you just put that money into Bitcoin, because Bitcoin versus the dollar itself, if we just turn all of this off just to make it easier. Right, Bitcoin is up 22% versus the dollar. So if you had, hold on, if you had 1,000 real, hold on, I'm just trying to see. If we had, basically, if the dollar now is worth 1,300 and Brazilian real, you would actually have a lot more than that, right? Your 1,300 would be, let's do 1.22, 1,500, almost $1,600 more, right? Just because you put it into Bitcoin. So I think this really shows the power of crypto. Because people in America or people in the developing world don't really, because we have lots of people who doubt crypto and Bitcoin. But if you're seeing what's happening to people in local currencies who are having inflation and all these issues, you would be bullish on Bitcoin too. So this was something I covered in my earlier tweets this week, right? If I can pull this up here. So if you're not following me on Twitter, definitely be sure to follow me. Right? So let me just go here real quick. Okay, where is this? Yeah, here's my tweet storm where I talked about this. Right? So the example I gave was with the US dollar and Brazilian, right? And the Mexican peso. Right? So here's an example. Right, Bob has $1,000 in the Brazilian real on January 1st, 2020. As of today, but back when I was talking, his money is basically turned to $700. Now imagine we have Alice. She puts $1,000 into the Brazilian real. But John, hold on, sorry, I'm just trying to, I got confused here. Alice puts $1,000 into the Brazilian real. She puts her money into Bitcoin. Her money, as of today, is $1,300. John has $1,000 in the Brazilian real, and he puts his money into gold. His money, as of today, is $1,100. So Bob back here, who kept his money in the Brazilian real, he is losing money. But not only that, this is where it gets very, very crucial, right? Not only that, he's losing money versus John and Alice, to a point where Alice, in just half a year, is twice as rich as Bob. This part is crucial. Alice is twice as rich as Bob, just because Bob put his money into BTC. Right? No, sorry. I mean, Bob is losing money. Alice is twice as rich as Bob by putting her money in BTC. And John, obviously not making quite as much money as Alice in BTC, but gold is still also holding its value. Then I go on to say inflation and hyperinflation are real, especially in the developing world, because this is what's happening in Venezuela and other parts of the world. And Bitcoin, digital gold, and gold protect people from having these issues in the developing world. They help them from losing their wealth. They become stores of value from a declining local currency. And as I've shown here, right? So anybody who's in any of these parts of the world, I mean, you're basically protecting your wealth, right? Whether you're in Brazil, Mexico, Turkey, Colombia, Russia, I mean, you would have been better off putting money in Bitcoin, because let's say it's hard to get US dollars, right? Because even Bitcoin has outperformed US dollar. Obviously, the chart here looks different because we're looking at, excuse me, at Bitcoin versus the dollar, but Bitcoin is up 20. Looking at this, right? Bitcoin is up versus the dollar. So that's why it makes sense to be in crypto and Bitcoin. Right? That's the use case for people outside of America, outside of the developing world, to have exposure to Bitcoin. It helps them from losing money like this. Then people asked about stocks and equities, and I go on to say that yes, stocks and equities are great. They do outperform the market. So historically speaking, stocks have outperformed gold, but people in the developing world, not everybody can go out there and just buy Apple or Amazon, these US companies. So even an honest family, for example, in Iran, they can't just go out there and buy Apple, right? Because there are so many economic sanctions that prevent people from buying these stocks, right? Whether it's going to a bank, KYC, whatever. And in some parts of the world, women don't even have access to a bank account. And just other parts of the world, people are unbanked. right? Because in some places of the world, I mean, first of all, you can't go and buy a stock unless you have a bank account, and not everybody in the world has bank accounts, right? However, people who have cash or whatever, if you have a phone, that's why in East Africa, in Kenya and Uganda, M-Pesa is very, very popular. People can go there and use mobile money just with their phones. And now there are local stores where people can go and buy Bitcoin peer to peer, right? And people who are unbanked are now becoming banked due to Bitcoin and crypto, right? So the value prop is stronger than ever, especially in this pandemic, right? Bitcoin and gold are independent stores of value, not controlled by the whims of corrupt governments, by politicians, by central banks. This is why investors diversify and have a piece of either in their portfolio, right? So going back to this, I mean, this was definitely very, very eye-opening, right? So for any of our audience who's in any of these countries, or just even any other country maybe I didn't cover yet, definitely share with us what you think, right? Share with us how it is in your country with inflation. I mean, I definitely do want to resume the Crypto World Tour, and I've already had people in these countries inviting me to come, saying they want me to host, saying the dollar goes a long way, and is because, for example, a friend of ours, he's in Rio, he's saying, man, it's crazy, but on the last World Tour, you didn't come to Brazil. Come to Brazil now, it'll be good, it'll be cheap, it'll be frugal, cost effective, because obviously we're going in one of the roughest recessions globally, a global recession, right? So being frugal and trying to maximize how far Bitcoin goes, right? Whether Bitcoin or dollar, wherever you are, definitely does make sense. I have lots of friends of mine who are expats, right? They're Americans or grew up elsewhere, whether the UK, Amsterdam, or Holland, and they went somewhere else, whether Indonesia and Bali, Thailand, Colombia, where else, or just other parts of the world, and they're basically making crypto or dollars, and the cost of living is very low, right? So that's something I've been looking into. I still love America, don't really plan to fully leave yet, but I have thought about maybe going somewhere and posting up, whether it's back to Thailand or whether it's going to Brazil for a few weeks or even a month, getting an Airbnb and just minimizing my cost of living as I'm stacking more crypto and more dollars. That's kind of my mindset, right? It's basically called currency arbitrage. And yeah, I mean, let me know what you think. Anybody out there with any thoughts on currency arbitrage, with inflation, with helping the unbanked become banked and getting them exposure to Bitcoin and crypto to store their value and protect their wealth? And let me know what you think down in the comments below.